Alrighty. Hi, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome. Today is March 12th. I can't believe we're already in mid-March, kind of mid-March. And welcome everybody for joining. We'll give it a few more minutes to let people come in, and then we'll go ahead and get started. Today is a nice sunny day in California, kind of. I think it might rain a little bit later today, but it's been sunshine for the last few days, so I can't complain. Time change happened to everybody as well, so but not, I guess not for everybody, at least for the states that have the time change. Welcome in, guys. Yes, Vanessa, I feel the same way. Mid-March, I was like, it was just January yesterday. All right, we'll give it one more minute, and then we'll go ahead and get started here. Freddie, you can start sharing your screen if you want.
Sure, give me a minute. All right. And where's my share screen? Okay, let me know when you can see it.
Yes, we are good.
All right, awesome.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and jump in. Again, my name is Veronica. Welcome back. I am the Customer Success Team Lead here at Transifex, and I'll be your host for today's session and for the series that we have going on. Again, we just want to thank everybody for coming in. Today, we are going to go through Transifex Masterclass session, where we're going to go ahead and learn about the integration between Zendesk and Transifex. So just a little reminder, here at Transifex, we're here to help lift that language barrier and empower you to engage in the world. And we just hope that these sessions will help make it just that much easier for all of you to do this and continue to grow your mission and your business here. So before I pass it over to Freddie, this time around, we should, for those of you who were here last week, we didn't have the chat button, but this time we do have chat available. So I can see some of you already using it. Appreciate that. Any type of questions that you guys have, please use the questions tab. That'll just help us be able to spotlight a little bit easier the questions that come in. But obviously, if you guys need anything, you're not getting what you need from there, go ahead and put it into the chats. I'll be kind of watching both of them. And then any questions that come in, we'll try to answer them as they come. So let me make sure that we're not missing anything. I know today is Tuesday, and this is kind of prime real estate time. So if you guys can't make it for the entire session today, totally fine. You were registered into this, so after this, you will receive a recording. So you can always watch that at the time that works best for you. So without further ado, I will go ahead and pass it over to Freddie, and you have the stage.
Okay, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, awesome. So today's session, we're just basically going to go through the Zendesk integration, so unlocking help center localization, exploring the seamless fusion of Zendesk and Transifex. And myself, I'm Freddie Lugo, sales solutions engineer, and then you just met Veronica, who's helping me run the show today. Here's a little bit about some questions, some how to basically ask some questions, right? So utilize the questions tab at the bottom, type your questions, and then I'll try my best to keep an eye on it. If not, Veronica will yell at me and just tell me, hey, there's a question, and then I can pop in and take a look at the question. Again, your input matters, so please feel welcome to share any thoughts you'd like to discuss, either via the chat or in the questions window. And with that being said, let's jump right in. So today we're gonna cover unlocking the help center localization and exploring the seamless fusion of the Zendesk and Transifex, right? So the dynamic integration between Zendesk and Transifex would be used to elevate your support communication. So what are we expecting? After this master class, you should be able to synchronize your help center content and finish translations between Zendesk and Transifex, allowing your localization and your localization team to leverage Transifex Transifex's powerful tools and effortlessly translate your help center content. So to accomplish this, we're going to do a couple of things, right? We're going to run through setting up the Zendesk integration, linking a specific Transifex project with Zendesk, syncing content from Zendesk to Transifex, and then we're going to cover translating content in Transifex as well. So I know that's in a bit of a nutshell. So here's just some quick stuff, right? So this training is helpful for anyone that's managing a help center content and is looking to effortlessly translate the content. Why is this training important? Help you understand how you can localize, how your localization team can leverage Transifex. And then I think I covered this already, but we'll cover the advantages of the Zendesk integration and syncing content. If there are no questions, I'm going to jump right in. Okay, Veronica, I may need you to just let me know if a question pops up and then I can open the question window. Okay, so thank you. Setting up the Zendesk integration. So in this section, I'm gonna keep things more hands-on and show you live sessions, right? But in this section, what I'm gonna cover is connecting Zendesk to your Transifex organization and then configuring your Zendesk Help Center to support multiple languages. And so let's go ahead and start the demo. So first things first, what we'll do here is let's jump into the Zendesk area first. And there's a couple of things to just cover with you here when you're first working with Zendesk to set it up for Transifex, right? One of the first things that we want to do is jump into this upper right corner here, hop into the admin center, and we're actually going to go ahead and come in here. We're going to click on the account icon, and then I'm just going to jump into the localization area. And what I'm doing here is, where did it go? I'm sorry, hold on. Oh, yep. And then click here, hit additional languages. Sorry, I didn't see it. My glasses were a little foggy. But what we're going to do here is we're going to set up multiple languages for us to work with within Transifex, right? And you'll see that you have a bunch of options that we can work with. So we have Czech. We have a couple more here, like English, United Kingdom. So you can feel free to add any of the languages that you wish to work with from a Zendesk standpoint. And then once you've selected all of your languages, I've already done this in my project, you can click on the save to save your settings. Now, once you complete that, there's another area where we go ahead and we need to fix, which is in the guide area. We need to set up for the localization as well. And where did it go? Yep, there we go. Guide admin. And then we're going to hit on the settings gear or icon here. We're going to jump into the language settings. And then we're just going to go ahead and add new languages here that we want to work with. So we can manage those languages there. Add your new language, save it, and then jump out. Once these pieces are configured in Zendesk, we're just about ready to go. So I will just close these tabs so I don't have the extra tabs just clouding up the screen. But we've done that from a Zendesk standpoint. What we want to do now, actually from here, there's another thing I need to do. So here is my subdomain or my brand, SC Demo Zendesk. And I'm going to click on the gears icon again, or the settings icon. And in here, I want to go into the language settings. And then I want to add the languages that I want to work with, really the languages that are going to be in my Transifex project that I want to work with, right? And I'll show you Transifex in a minute because we're going to create the project in there. But I want to go in here and let's go ahead and add, let's go ahead and do Spanish. And then the help center name is going to be ES, and that should match what we have in Transifex, just so you know, so they can be a great match. And then I think the other one was German. Hopefully I did get those right. And then we'll do that. So we've added our languages here. So now from a Zendesk standpoint, we're pretty good to go. Now, once we've done this, we can go back in here and I could just jump back into my articles section or actually hit the articles. So I'm ready to go with a new article. Oh, I didn't save my changes. That's why it said that. See, beauty of doing stuff on the fly, right? Freddie had forgotten to save it. So there we go. Let's do this again. Spanish. Add language. Let's do the German again. Perfect. All right, German. There we go. DE. All right, now let's save the changes. Sorry about that. Now that the changes are set, let's go back into our articles area so we can manage our articles. And from the Zendesk standpoint, we're good. Now, from a Transifex standpoint, if you have an existing project that you want to go ahead and link to from Zendesk, then you would pick that project. But if you're starting from scratch, brand new, and you've never done anything with Transifex before for the integration, what we would do here is go into your organization, click on settings, and then you'll notice that there's an integration section in here. You would click integrations. And again, mine is already set up, but you will click install here, and then you will point it to your main Zendesk account so that you can authorize Transifex to communicate with Zendesk. And there's a whole series of steps that we can share with the links in the Help Center articles that we have available for Transifex. But once this part here is set up, when we do go back to our dashboard area, now you can select any project, existing project, or you can create a brand new one, right? So let's go ahead and I want to create a brand new one. So let's come in here and say, let's do SE demo Zendesk, right? It's going to be a file-based project. I'm going to use English as my source, and then I'm going to go ahead and do Spanish. Oops. There you go, Spanish ES. And then I'm going to do, I think German was the other one that I did. So let's do German DE. And again, I'm just creating a new project, a new team for the project. If you have existing teams that you're working with, you can always assign this to an existing project team. In this case, I'm just going to create a brand new one. And we're going to hit create project. Everything okay so far? No questions? No? All right, perfect. Cool. So now we're ready to go. Now at this point, because from an organizational level, we authorize and we connected to Zendesk for the integration. Now for any project that I want to connect to a Zendesk subdomain or domain, we come in here, we'll go integrations. And you'll see that you have the Zendesk and it has for you to link your help center, right? So at this stage, what we're going to do here is I'm going to click on link the help center. And then you're going to get a list off of the Zendesk account. We're going to get a list of domains or brands that we can work with. And you see there's a few of them here grayed out and things like that. But I'm going to look for, here it is, my SE demo Zendesk. And now I'm going to click that. And I want to make the connection. Now, what's going to happen here is that I'm going to get to the point where I can select my content to be synced into Transifex. Now, if I want, I can select all of them and sync all of them. Or I can just pick an individual one so I can continue into the wizard. And so what I'll do here for this one is I'm going to take this one here. What you'll notice here is that you'll see the little circle next to it. This one is in draft. If it's a gray circle, if it's a green one, you'll see that it's a published article, right? So you could do draft and publish. I'm just going to select the one article for now. And I'm just going to go ahead and hit next. And now there's some key things to point out in this area here. And what we're doing here at this point is I want to select how my content is going to synchronize, right? So from Zendesk to Transifex, right? The actions will be done automatically when pulling content from Zendesk. So for the first one, by default, we're going to say fetch initial translations from Zendesk. So if you happen to have translations in Zendesk and you want them propagated over into Transifex to get you started, you would select this one. Or leave it checked because it is default. And then you have options to auto pull new articles and or auto pull updated articles if you want. And I'll talk a little bit more about these sync settings, but if I'm not mistaken, they do auto pull on an hourly basis, right? So every hour will trigger the new pull of articles and updated articles. Okay, I'll come back to these settings again a little bit later, especially the string segmentation. But what I wanted to point out here as well is pushing translations from Transifex to Zendesk. Here, you have the option to do 100% translated or 100% reviewed. And that's going to be basically your threshold. So when a language hits 100% translated, it will get pushed over to Zendesk. And you also have the option, which is selected for you by default, to push translations as published, right? So you can have push them as published from Transifex. I will leave that selected and then go ahead and hit save and synchronize. And it has successfully linked. So let's go ahead and close this. What you'll notice here is you get a nice little breakdown of what just happened, right? So it is linked and it tells me my subdomain that I'm working with or brand, right? SE Zendesk Demo. The brand name is SE Demo Zendesk. And then I have the status of my last sync. And if I want to see a little bit more information about it, I can hit this and I get my activity log window. This dialog will tell me what was pushed from where, right? From Zendesk to Transifex and then Transifex to Zendesk. Okay. Any questions so far? No? All right. Awesome. So that's the basic setup that I wanted to cover. And that basically takes us to the next step, which is just some key takeaways from this, right? So we've learned how to connect Zendesk to Transifex. We also learned how to configure Zendesk for multiple languages. But what I missed on the slide here is that I also showed you how to configure the languages from a domain standpoint to map with the ones that we're using from Transifex, right? That was that step where I went into the settings in Zendesk of my brand or domain, subdomain, and added the two languages, Spanish and German. Then when I created my project in Transifex, I went ahead and created the project with two languages, which is also Spanish and German, matching to what we did in Zendesk. Cool. Okay. The next section is linking a specific Transifex project with Zendesk. We kind of did a little bit of that already as part of that first setup. But what we're going to cover in this section is basically choosing content for translation. We also did a little bit of that um, in that first setup, but basically filtering and sorting content, brand support, the string segmentation, which I showed as one of the settings, and also pushing localized content options, right? Those are the areas we're going to cover in this section. And okay, let's go ahead and jump into the demo now. Okay, so I did do some of this already. I went a little bit ahead on the first one and did some of the pieces for this one in here, but we did do the linking of the project already with the linking of the help center. So I already did those steps, right? That was when we went in here and we clicked the link, the help center. We did those pieces already. So let me see what else. One thing to note that when we did do that linking of the help center, the content that's currently getting synced between Zendesk and Transifex includes things like articles, dynamic content, categories, and sections, right? So what you'll notice is that in the interface that we saw when we did this, right? So if I come back here and hit edit settings in this area here, sorry, a little bit of a cough. You can view the content per content type, right? Supported, and you can search across articles and dynamic content, leveraging various criteria, things like, title, categories, section, status, right? So these are the things you can see here: title, category, section, status, and things like that, right? These are some of the things that you're going to be able to use or leverage to help sort for your content or pull the content that you want, right? Also, any selections that are made in this window. So right now, I think I have 6 pages. So if I were to select, for example, let's select another article here, and I go ahead and I don't have another page, but if I had a secondary page or a tertiary page because of the paging, these checks persist all the way through the page navigation as well, right? So you never lose those articles or pieces of content that you've selected as you're navigating from page to page. right? It'll persist all the way through. And then obviously the end result would be when we're ready selecting all of our content, you can update the settings and synchronize. This is going to force that synchronization of that new content. So when we're talking about the choosing of the content, again, we mentioned before already, right, that you can do category. So I can click here and just do something for a general category. You can see anything that's categorized as general will come up in my list. I do have a short list of articles in here right now. I don't have a huge, robust one, but if we had many, you would see the different ones that are tagged with the general category as opposed to any other category. Same thing with section. I can do announcements or FAQs. So if I wanted to, I can switch and say FAQs, so only show me the FAQs. This is a good way for us to filter down and start sorting out the pieces of content that we want to work with. Making sense so far? I wanted to pause for a minute to see if there are any questions or if I needed to go over anything else again. Veronica, looks like we're okay. Okay, awesome. One of the other things to note here is for the search button, just you could use double quotes around your search terms to make searching more focused. So if you had things in here that you several criteria or text that you wanted to work with, you could use the double quotes, right? So it's going to work in a similar fashion to your normal search capabilities in most sites or most ways that you normally would use your search. Okay, so far? Yep. Awesome. Let's go hit the update settings here. So let me just go ahead and take my filters out. Oh, did I lose all my filters? Content type, articles. Okay, so there's my content. I want to go ahead and hit. So let's go here, content synchronization. Make sure everything is set okay. All right, cool. I did my content, and then I'm just going to hit update and synchronize. And now what you'll see is that my syncing is in progress, as it says here, syncing in progress at 100%. And again, if I wanted to check this, I can go ahead and come here, although I don't think it did anything right now. Last sync, March 12th, 11/23, which was just now. All right, there we go. A few seconds ago, and we get the two EN articles, right? The one that was already previously selected, and then the new one that I just selected. Okay. Okay, and then the brand support, that was what we saw when we did the initial settings where we went ahead and selected the brand name. So we do have the brand support where I can switch and link into the designated brand or subdomain, right? So we covered that when I did that initial link setup. So like I said, I did cover some of them in the previous example when I was connecting Transifex to Zendesk. And then another thing, let's jump back into the settings real quick that I wanted to show again here. So if we go into edit settings, and now we go into the content synchronization, there's this pre-processed content. And unfortunately, I didn't select it in the first one, but I can talk you through it. This is where if you're using complex dynamic content to create macros, right, there's an item in the synchronization options to split long content into separate sentences, right? This is called the string segmentation. You can only set this option on the integration setup, as all synced content will be handled differently based on your settings, right? So I didn't do it initially because I didn't want to set up the string segmentation. But if this is something that you do want to set up, and the help document has a little bit more information on, examples of when you would use this, then on the initial setup, you would check the box for string segmentation, and then it will do the segmentation of splitting the long content into separate sentences for you. I'll take a quick pause for a minute there just so that if there are any questions or anyone else has any other comments or anything they wanted to see. Veronica, looks like we're okay. All right, cool. One other piece that I wanted to talk about the wizard here, I did mention before, when we did the first setup, is the 100% translated, 100% reviewed, and depending on when in your workflow you want this content to be pushed back, this is when we'll work in this section. Again, I did this setup initially when we did the first connection, but I just wanted to bring it back up because this is where we're talking about syncing the localized content back into Zendesk, where we're doing it automatically, right? So once it reaches that threshold, for any of the content entries that are articles, dynamic content, categories, or sections, for each target language that reaches 100%, the integration will automatically send the localized content back to Zendesk. Again, 100% translated, 100% reviewed, or 100% proofread. Okay. And again, we talked about the published translations as once these are set, again, we're just going to hit the update settings and synchronize. At that point, we're connected, ready to go. One thing to note here as well is, all right, I did that piece. That wizard is to configure the settings for the syncing. Now, pushing the content back, I did that. Reviewed, proofread, translate. All right. So, in addition, you can choose the state in which translated articles are to be pushed back into Zendesk, and I showed you by the default we have a push as translation, so you can have them either published or as a draft, and also by default the translations are published immediately, right? Which is that checkbox that you saw in the settings window on the lower right corner. Now, for dynamic content, you will get an option to split it into phrases. Now, this is convenient for cases where the dynamic content is hosting Zendesk macros that you can use for emails, for example. Just so you know, the option can be set during the initial setup of the integration, and you won't be able to change it later, right? So please be careful on when you want to leverage that that segmentation of the strings, if and when you're ready to leverage that, right? Also, one more thing to note before I move to the next section is that all Zendesk content synced for the first time with Transifex will also sync any existing translations as long as we have that fetch initial translation setting enabled. Any questions so far? Let me just jump back. I see something in the chat, but nothing in the questions. Okay, so we're good to go. Let me jump back quickly here. Okay, so key takeaways from this section. We've learned how to manage Zendesk content to translate. We now understand string segmentation on dynamic content and the fact that we need to do it on the initial setup. After that, it's grayed out, right? You can't do it after the initial setup. And then we're now aware of options for publishing the localized content, right? 100% translated, 100% reviewed, and 100% proofread, if that's part of your workflow process. Okay. The next section is a little bit more on syncing content from Zendesk to Transifex. And for this section, what we're going to cover is how to sync the content, right? Or how the content gets synced from Zendesk to Transifex, and then our options. The first one you're going to see is automatic. Then we're going to cover the manual sync, and then we'll also cover the sync status report as well. And so let's go ahead and jump
Freddie,
over.
before you head into there,
Yep.
it looks like we have a question. Can you link
Sure.
multiple Zendesk brands?
To one project, I think no, they are per project basis, if I'm not mistaken. So if we go back, that's a great question, by the way. If we go back here, you'll notice that in this project, when I went to do the linking, I had to link it to that one subdomain, right? So if we come back in here, I don't know if I can go back. I can see if I can go back up one to the subdomain. You only have the ability to go to one, right? If you were doing another one, for example, I have over here another Zendesk project where I'm actually linked to a different brand or subdomain here from mine. So normally you would do one on a per project basis, link it to one Zendesk subdomain. Great question. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see anything else popping up in there. Let me just jump back in here. Great question, by the way. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the demo. So now from here, okay. Okay, yeah. So wanted you to notice that the synchronization of content from Zendesk to Transifex, I think I mentioned it already, is going to occur either through manual actions by selecting the desired articles and clicking save and synchronize, or automatically on an hourly basis. And this is what I mentioned earlier when we were linking, right? That I said, if you do the auto pull new articles and auto update, that's going to occur on an hourly basis, right? And that one is not configurable. It is set to do it hourly. Now, let's say, for example, you're in the middle of that hour break in between the syncs and you want to push your content right away. You have the option to do it automatic or manually. And I'll show you that in a minute where you can actually do it manually and force the sync from Zendesk to Transifex. All right. So another thing to note is that when a syncing process is initiated, you'll be able to see that syncing is in progress. And again, how do we show that? I think I showed it already, but let me just jump back in here just to refresh you on how it happens. Here is where you'll get that link status, right? It'll be the last one that's linking. And you saw when I did these update settings and synchronize, you saw over here that it said it's 100% in progress, right? You can also click on this, and so that you can see the status of all of the activity that's happened thus far with that integration in terms of the syncing of the content items from one to the other and back and forth, right? And so if we come over here, so let's take a look at automatic, right? So the integration detects updated source content on Zendesk, of course, provided that you have the auto pull new articles or auto pull updated articles for the articles you selected to sync with Transifex, right? So in that initial setup, you saw I checked both boxes in the settings, so I can jump back in here and show it to you quickly. It's not that difficult. So if I come back, I think it was here where I have the auto pull new articles and auto pull updated articles. As long as you have these enabled and set up, the updates will happen automatically on that hourly basis, right? So another thing to keep in mind here is that one thing I forgot to mention is that for other content types from Zendesk, for example, categories, sections, and things like that, those are not automatically fetched. It's only articles that are automatically fetched. For the other ones, you'll have to do the manual fetching of the data from Zendesk, right? Also, like I think I mentioned earlier, if you have that fetch initial translations from Zendesk, it will fetch all of the translations that exist in Zendesk into Transifex to get you started on the translations. Okay, once we've made these settings changes, again, you've seen me do this a couple of times already. You hit the update settings and synchronize, and you get the close, and then you get the status updates here, right? Syncing in progress at 50%. Any questions so far? Okay, cool. I don't see another one there. So let's say, for example, if you wanted to resync existing contents from Zendesk to the respective resources in Transifex, in that case, you should click the edit settings in the project integration and show the integration wizard, then push update settings and synchronize. We've done that already. If you want to add new content, again, you go in there, select the content, right? You repeat the step and you click update and synchronize button. After that, once it's selected as we've seen here, so if we do here, edit settings, we go to content, these are selected. Now, because I have the auto updates and auto new articles, these will automatically get synced if I make any updates to these articles as soon as the hourly auto update kicks in.
Looks like you have another question, Freddie.
I'm sorry, say it again, Veronica.
Looks like we've got a question in the questions tab here.
Okay, let's jump into questions. Can I localize draft articles before publishing my article? Yes. So if we go back in here, I'm sorry, I just hit the synchronize. Let me go back in here. So if we come here and we have the content area, you'll notice if your article is already published, obviously it's going to take the publish. But if you notice this one here, actually is in draft mode, right? So it's not published. So this one we can sync into Transifex, get it in there, do the translations, and because in the content synchronization area we have push translations as published, I can push it back as published. Or if I don't want to, I can just uncheck it and push it back as draft mode. I'll show you that in a minute when I translate, so that you can get an idea of how it actually is going to look. But I gotta have I have to remember the article, right? Stella Skyanami is the one that is not drafted. I mean, it's in draft mode but not published. So the answer is yes. I hope that answers it. I hope I covered it. All right, perfect, cool. Another way to do the translations, that was all automated, right? It was automatic, hourly basis, and when you do the update to the settings to do the changes. So there's also the option to do this manually, right? So you can manually send the localized content to Zendesk without waiting for a resource to hit 100% translated or reviewed. Now, this is in the event that you're working with translations in here and you want to send it over to Zendesk at a certain threshold of when you want to push the content over, right? So if you have it set at 100, but you're at about 75, 80% and you want to send it, here's where you can click this send to Zendesk. And now you can basically overwrite that auto push threshold of 100 to now say, hey, I want to send it over at 75% and then hit sync. I'm not going to save it, but I'm giving you the option of, or at least a look at how you would do that from this standpoint if you wanted to send something that didn't hit 100% yet. Okay, I'm going to close this for a minute. All right, no, one thing to keep in mind, right? I mean, you have the option to do that, and you can set your thresholds, which then overwrites to 100% translated. But just keep in mind that syncing content that's less than 100% translated back to Zendesk might result in parts of the content being in the original language for that article, right? Or dynamic content. So keep in mind that if you hit the 75 threshold, or you say I want to do it at 80%, you'll only have 80% of your content translated. The remaining 20% will be in the source language, whether it's English or whatever your source language is. So we probably want to avoid that if possible, right? Because I know from an end user standpoint, I would not want to see content 80% translated and then the other 20% not translated, right? I would want to see the entire block of content or the entire article or dynamic content translated into the native language that I'm working with. Any questions so far before I continue? Okay, I don't see another question in there. Great questions, by the way. Okay, the syncing status report, we've seen that, right? This is this little area here where it tells us the last sync status, March 12th at 11:35, which was about 4 minutes ago. And then I can click in here and I can actually see details, more details about what's been synced back and forth, right? Zendesk to Transifex and then Transifex to Zendesk, right? So you can get the idea of what's going on in there. Cool. I mean, you'll get your success errors. So if you get any errors or warnings, like for example here, I can always hover over this and then just see what the issue is with that piece of content. And then I can go ahead and fix that piece of content in Zendesk and then have it re-execute. And or if it's something in Transifex, then I can go ahead and make my necessary changes and then sync back up and then let it come back and do its sync, right? So you see here, March 12th at 11:23, we received an error for that piece of content. When it did execute again a little bit further up, you'll notice that both articles now did successfully migrate over into Transifex. So it auto fixed itself and the content was able to make it back into Transifex. Any questions so far on these pieces, right? Because that was the last bit I wanted to show in this section before I go ahead and move into the other section, which I think it's the actual translations. So let me just
Freddie,
check.
just a heads up, we're coming on time here.
Yep.
So, for anybody who can't stay for this whole thing, again, this will go ahead and be sent to you guys via email after the event.
Thanks, Veronica, for the time. For the time check. Content synchronization from Zendesk is what we pick. Key takeaways from this section, right, and how it can be followed. Auto sync is automatically taken care of, assuming that you have all the settings in play as well. You can force a manual sync, and then we've also learned how to keep track of the status of the content synchronization. Right, that's that little area here where we actually can check the status and get a report of everything that's been synced. Okay, and I think, yep, last but not least, and right on time, Veronica, good, is translating the content, right, in Transifex. So let's go ahead and here, this section, I'm just going to go into the editor and show you a couple of things on translation and talk about what we can leverage. Things like working in the editor, translation memory, machine translation, Transifex AI, and translation automation as well. And I think I can cover it in about maybe 10 minutes. So let's go ahead and go in here. Let's just jump into the demo now. So we've done all the syncing. We've talked about the ways you can sync it back and forth. Everything's set up and ready to go. The one thing we haven't done yet is actually jump into the resources and manage the actual translations. And you notice that we had 2 articles that we did push over as part of the setup process and the demo so far. So here is the UI. Let me just go quickly here and do a quick little breakdown. Here's where you'll have information about the project itself, the number of languages, strings that are available for translation, how many have been translated and are ready for review. In this case, we haven't done anything just yet. So when I click on the resources and I go ahead and say, I want to work with this article, and we're going to go ahead and just jump in and say, I want to translate the Spanish one. So let's go over here, hit translate. And so now we're in the editor. And what you'll see on the left-hand side are the strings that were pushed over from that Zendesk article. Here, you will also see that the gray circle here indicates that it hasn't been translated. It'll change into, I think it's a green or a blue when it does get translated, which you'll see in a minute. Then there's a single check for review, double check for proofread. So you'll see these indicators here. But also when the translations are done, you'll see the translations pop up here right alongside the source strings, right? The area that we work with in the middle is the area where we're actually performing the translations. So I can actually click in here, and if I was fluent, which I am in Spanish, but I'm not going to go ahead and test my Spanish translation skills right now. But I can come in here and type my translation. If I have machine translation enabled, I can machine translate. Or I can also use Transifex AI to do the translations for me, right? What I wanted to point out on this side here is to the right is what I like to call the Transifex editors, the translators tool belt, right? And in here, you'll have a couple of things. These suggestions are suggestions from your translation memory. And then you can get it from 101% down to, 60, 70, or whatever percentage. And then you can leverage that, push the translation memory translation in here and make your adjustments as needed. If it's 80% of the way and you want to finish the translation, you can do that. You can also see a history of the activities or the work done on articles. If we had a glossary, which this project does not have, the glossary term list would show up in here, and we can leverage glossary for here. And then we also have the ability to have open discussions by going into the comment section and adding a comment or adding an issue. And then we can talk to other translators or language coordinators or anything of that nature if we have questions about the translations being done. But for the sake of this session, I'm going to go ahead and select all and hit machine translate. And fingers crossed they will translate everything and I didn't run out of my limit. But as you see this, the translation is happening. You see, like I said, it switched from the gray circle to now the greenish circle to indicate that the string is translated. And now all of my strings have been translated. And you can see if I select through each one, it's in a state where I need to review it, right? So it's ready for review. Now, based off of the settings that we've done, we selected in the settings to push back to Zendesk the 100% translated strings for the given languages that we're working with, right? So what I'm expecting now is that if I jump over into Zendesk and I go ahead and select, I think it was this one that we did, if I'm not mistaken. I hope so. Oh, maybe it didn't do it. I did do this one, right? Yeah, sample stellar. All right, 100% translator. Hey, the beauty of a live session, right? Did I not? That's American English. Oh, there it is. Okay, sorry. I needed a slight little refresh. I was expected to see it automatically, but you see, there's my Spanish, and you see it's published, right? So English was in draft mode. When we pushed it to Transifex, we did everything we needed to do. We got the Spanish translation, and it pushed the Spanish translation in published mode. So if I want to switch to that now, I can go ahead and click it, toggle over. See, published this minute. It was published when it was automatically pushed to from Transifex to Zendesk, and I have my article ready, fully translated in Spanish. And if we had done the same thing for German, it would be the same thing, right? So if I had come in here and switched from here, I say, oh, you know what? I like the way that those translations went. Let's go ahead and do the German one. Now I'm pushing the limits of um, the demo guys, and hoping that it doesn't break on me right now or hit the limit. There we go. Here we have the German 100% translated. And then again, they're all at a state ready to review. If I come back now into Zendesk and I switch to English, maybe we need to give it a minute or two. Come back and hopefully we'll get the German in a few, but you get the idea. At this point, I've covered the pieces that I wanted to show in the live session. So, Veronica, I think we can open it up to. Let me just go ahead back here real quick, and let's do the key takeaways for this section. Again, translating content in Transifex, how to leverage translation memory, how to leverage AI. Oh, setting up translation automation. Perfect. I didn't do that. So let's go in here and do this. So I did that manually. If we want to set up the automation of it, we'll go into for example, the SE demo Zendesk. I will hit in the settings. From the settings, I will go into my workflow. And now I mentioned translation memory, right? I also mentioned that you can translate with machine translation and AI, but the translation memory here, I can select translation memory fill up. What this will do now is that when new articles are synced from Zendesk into Transifex, if I have translation memory matches, those matches will get translated via translation memory. And then whatever isn't translated via translation memory, you have to either manually translate or leverage machine translation. Or if you wanted to go one step further, you can enable machine translation fill up. And now you can have it fully automated where translation memory fill up will kick in first, which are the reviewed and approved translations that have been saved into translation memory. Those will kick in first. Then those that don't get translated with the translation memory fill up will then have machine translation fill up go right behind it and translate it with machine translation, whatever machine translation you're using, right? It could be Google, it could be DeepL, Amazon Translate, whatever the translation setup you have in Transifex will kick in. And then the beauty of doing it that way is that if you enable both of these and a new article comes in, that new article will now be automatically translated. And then, as you can guess it, once it hits the 100% threshold and matches your 100% translated threshold, it will then push the article back here in Zendesk, showing you there you go. There's the German one, but it'll come in automatically like this, right? Rather than you ever having to go into Transifex, you can set it up with the automations so that you don't have to go in there and you can manage it from here and then do the syncs, right? I mean, you'll still have to come into the actual integration to check your articles, but if you have the auto pull new articles selected from the wizard that we saw, then any new articles, when the hour auto pull kicks in, it will pick those up, and then your translations will happen automatic, right? With almost no need to jump from here into Transifex. Good thing I saw the takeaway slide. I forgot that piece. That was a nice piece to show too, the automation.
Looks like we
Let
do have a question as well.
Sure. Yeah, I'm about to jump into the questions slide, which then opens it up for us to just jump into the questions. I don't see. Oh, that's at the top. All right. If we don't select that publish translations option, we have to manually publish. Hold on, let me open it. If we don't select the publish translations option, we have to manually publish each language in Zendesk, or is there a way to publish all languages in Zendesk? Okay, great question. I'm not super familiar with Zendesk and how to publish all languages directly in Zendesk. But to answer your question, yes, if you don't have that checkbox selected for each of the languages that you do get translated, so in this case, I only have 2, so it's real minimal. But what you would do in here is you would have to come into Zendesk and publish each language. Now, I don't know if there's a bulk setting or a bulk way for you to publish the translations in Zendesk, but I'm almost sure that there should be a way for you to auto publish it. Oh, you said okay. You said maybe select a Spanish article. Sure. Yeah, there's a save. Let's see what's here. Yeah, so I'm assuming that from this area here. I'm sorry. Let me hit the start live answer. But yeah, as you can see from the screen, you would then probably have to just hit. You would get the publish option here to publish. I don't see in this drop down where you can do all of them at once, but there must be a way to do it. Any other questions? I mean, I could always unpublish it to see what the option is, but I'm almost sure that it would be save and publish as part of the settings. Any other questions? I see some stuff in the chat. Okay, perfect. Glad I was able to answer that. Cool. Any other questions? No? Veronica, you want to give them like maybe another minute to see if anybody...
Yeah, for sure. I'll just go ahead and start my talking just in case anybody's taking some time to type here. But thank you, Freddie. Appreciate the demo here. So again, before we part ways, I just want to remind everybody we have 2 more webinars in this series. Be sure to go ahead and register for that. Next week, we'll actually be learning about navigating the dashboard and mastering project insights. This is going to be hosted by one of our CSMs, Tamata. So make sure you guys are here for that. I look forward to cyber seeing all of you. That will be at the same time here, Tuesday, 8 a.m. PST, 11 a.m. EST, and then 5 p.m. Eastern European time, since the time change didn't happen for them. So it's at 5 p.m. now. And as always, be sure to check out our help center and on our Transifex website. Make sure to be a voice in the community forum. Please, we love hearing and interacting with you guys. So please feel free to come in and talk to us about all those topics, anything you guys need help with. And of course, if there's any questions you guys have, please feel free to reach out to support. We're here to help you guys with anything that you need. So again, after this call, you guys will receive the recording for this. And if you guys have a moment, there is a super short survey that you guys can take. It'll really help us if we kind of understand anything that you guys are wanting to look forward to learning more about in the future. And it'll just kind of help make these sessions a little bit better. So just want to double check, make sure we have no more last minute questions or anything like that. It looks like we are good to go. So again, if you guys think of anything after this call, please feel free to just send us an email. We can get all of that answered for you. And we appreciate everybody's time today. We went over by a little bit, but appreciate everybody sticking around. So I think with that, that's all from our side. I hope everybody has a wonderful rest of your day. And we hope to see you here next week, same time.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.